When we talk about desire, real, grounded, embodied desire, we have to begin with safety, not performance, not chemistry, not even physical attraction. Safety. Because no woman, no matter how interested she might be, can truly open herself unless she feels safe. And I'm not talking about just physical safety, though that matters deeply. I'm talking about emotional safety, psychological safety, spiritual safety, the safety that tells her you are allowed to be here fully, without needing to shrink, hide, or pretend. If she doesn't feel safe, she may still smile. She may still flirt. She may even seem relaxed. But that's not intimacy. It's survival. It's the performance of comfort to avoid confrontation. It's the trained behavior of someone who's had to make men feel okay in order to avoid punishment. And that's not desire. That's protection. Real desire from a woman starts where fear ends. And fear doesn't end just because you're nice. It ends because you're solid, because your presence doesn't feel like a trap, because you aren't chasing approval, validation, or submission, but creating space. Space where she's allowed to exhale, allowed to say no without losing your respect, allowed to be uncertain and still be treated with patience, not pressure. See, we live in a culture that often confuses persuasion with connection, where men are taught that if they just say the right things, play the right role, or create the right vibe, a woman will want to sleep with them. But what they don't realize is that true connection can't be manufactured. It's earned, not through charm, but through integrity, through being the kind of man who doesn't need to dominate in order to feel powerful. When a woman wants to sleep with you, really wants to, it's not because you convinced her. It's because she felt safe enough to drop her defenses. And safety isn't created through pressure or performance. It's created through consistency, through presence, through how you listen, through how you respond to her boundaries, her moods, her energy. If she senses that you're emotionally available, not needy, not overbearing, but simply present, she'll begin to lean in, not because you forced her to, but because something in her nervous system recognizes that your presence doesn't cost her peace, that she doesn't have to go to war with herself just to stay near you. It's subtle but powerful. She may move closer without thinking about it. She may mirror your posture. Her voice may soften. Her gaze may linger. These aren't tactics. They're responses, biological, emotional, and spiritual responses to the sense that your energy doesn't demand anything from her. Now, this doesn't mean she's ready for intimacy just because she feels safe, but it does mean she's now able to choose. And that's everything. Because a woman who is choosing you, not just tolerating you, is a woman who can engage from her full, integrated self, not from fear, obligation, or trauma bonding. And here's something important. Real masculine presence is not passive. It's not about doing nothing. It's about doing the right things from a grounded place. You're not trying to get something from her. You're inviting her to be herself without threat or demand. That's where feminine desire starts. That's where attraction blooms. Not in control, but in trust. This is where the difference between dominance and leadership becomes essential. Dominance says, I'll push until I get what I want. Leadership says, I'll hold space until you feel what's true. The first is coercion. The second is connection. If you've done the inner work, if you're emotionally intelligent, spiritually grounded, and psychologically mature, then you know that creating safety is not about losing your edge. It's about owning your strength without making it a weapon. A woman doesn't want a man who collapses in the face of her emotion, but she also doesn't want one who overwhelms her with his. She wants to feel that your strength is real, not loud, not showy, but steady. Because that's what she can relax into. So yes, when a woman wants to sleep with you, it often begins long before the bedroom. It begins the moment she realizes, I don't have to protect myself here. That realization might come when you respond to her boundaries without flinching, when you listen to her without interrupting, when you honor her hesitation instead of interpreting it as a challenge, when you stay rooted even when she tests your emotional capacity, not because she wants to manipulate you, but because she wants to trust you. And trust is the foundation of all true intimacy. At the end of the day, her desire isn't a puzzle you solve. It's a response to the space you've created. And if you want to be the kind of man women choose to be vulnerable with, not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually, and mentally, then remember this: a woman's body opens where her soul feels safe. And her soul will never feel safe in the presence of a man who needs her to be less in order for him to feel more. Let's talk about something most men miss completely. You think when a woman is into you, she's going to be all over you physically, that she's going to throw out obvious signs. But the truth is, a woman who's truly interested doesn't just show it with her body, she shows it with her presence. See, when a woman is genuinely attracted to you, when she's beginning to imagine physical intimacy with you, not just in a shallow or fleeting way, but in a conscious, embodied way, it's not her words or her body that reveal it first. It's her emotional engagement. That's the real sign. That's what you need to pay attention to if you're a man who actually wants something authentic. If you're not just chasing ego gratification, but actually want to be chosen, seen, and desired in a real way, a woman's presence, her emotional presence, is sacred. When she gives it to you, she's not giving you entertainment. She's giving you access to her internal world. That is not a small thing. And here's the key: she doesn't offer that kind of presence to just anyone. Especially not if she's done any kind of healing. Especially not if she's been burned before. So if you find her leaning in, listening closely, asking questions not just to be polite, but because she's genuinely curious, pay attention. If she's remembering things you said that you don't even remember saying, take note. If she's quiet, but in a focused, soft way, not distant, but deeply there, that's not passive behavior. That's connection happening. That's her seeing you in a way that most people miss. Now understand this: emotional presence is a higher form of intimacy than flirtation. Flirting can be playful, fun, light-hearted, but emotional presence, that's where intimacy begins to take root. Because in that moment, she's not just attracted to your image, she's intrigued by your being. This is where most men fall short. They keep looking for obvious signals: touching, teasing, compliments. And yes, sometimes those things show up, but the women you actually want in your life, the ones who are self-aware, grounded, and selective, they're not leading with those signs. They're leading with something far more subtle: their attention. A woman gives her attention like a slow burn. It's not loud. It's not theatrical, but it's powerful. Because when she's fully present with you, she's letting her guard down in a world that has taught her not to. She's choosing to be there in that moment with you, not because she has to, but because something in her senses that you are worth the risk. That's not just chemistry. That's a signal of trust. And trust for a woman is the first gate of desire. Now here's where it goes deeper. Women are biologically, psychologically, and emotionally attuned to danger. Not just physical danger, but emotional danger, relational instability, inconsistency, emotional immaturity. If she senses any of that in you, her system will not relax. And if her system doesn't relax, she will not become emotionally present. And if she doesn't become emotionally present, intimacy, true intimacy, will never happen. So if you notice a woman slowly dropping into the moment with you, if she's not on her phone, not performing, not rushing, it means something. It means she feels, at least in some part of her, that she can trust you enough to stay, to stop scanning the environment for threat, to just be. Don't dismiss that. That's where everything begins. And no, this doesn't mean she's ready to jump into bed. That's not the point. This isn't a game of decoding when you'll get something. This is about tuning into a different level of communication, one that goes far beyond the physical, one that touches something real. Because when a woman becomes emotionally available, it means she's testing the waters of vulnerability, not to manipulate, not to tease, but to see, is it safe to feel here? If the answer becomes yes, through your consistency, your groundedness, your ability to hold space without making it about you, then yes, physical desire may follow. But not out of pressure, out of choice, out of connection. When you understand this, everything changes. You stop trying to chase affection and start cultivating presence. You start listening not just to her words, but to her energy. And when you see her becoming present with you, giving you undivided attention, dropping into deeper conversation, softening instead of performing, you realize that what you're witnessing is not just attraction. It's trust forming in real time. And trust is always the beginning of intimacy. If you're the kind of man who wants more than surface level connection, if you want a woman to want you not just for your appearance or status, but for your presence, your energy, your being, then stop looking for the loud signs. Start noticing the quiet ones, because that quiet presence, that's her opening the door, slowly, intentionally, beautifully. And that door doesn't open through pressure. It opens through presence. When a woman begins to show up emotionally, not just physically, it means you've given her something rare in today's world, your undivided presence. And where presence lives, real desire follows. If there's one thing that separates a woman's attraction from a woman's surrender, it's this: how you respond to her boundaries. Because boundaries aren't just lines, they're signals. They communicate how she relates to herself, to others, and to her past. And when a woman begins to feel a physical desire for you, one of the first signs won't be her body leaning in. It'll be her testing the emotional territory with boundaries. But here's the twist. Most men miss a boundary isn't always a no. Sometimes it's an invitation, not an invitation to cross it, but to honor it, to show her what kind of man you are in the presence of her limits, to reveal whether your interest is conditional or whether you actually respect her as a person, not just a means to fulfill your desire. This is especially important when you're dealing with a woman who's done any healing work, someone who's been through trauma, manipulation, or narcissistic abuse. For her, boundaries are not just tools. They're survival. She doesn't set them to push you away. She sets them to see you clearly. She's asking silently, can I trust you with the parts of me that no one else has handled well? If your response is defensive, if you react with frustration, withdrawal, or guilt tripping, she'll retreat. Maybe not physically, or maybe not immediately. But emotionally, the space between you will widen. Because to her, that reaction confirms a painful story. Being open is dangerous. But if your response is grounded, if you honor the limit without making her feel wrong for having it, something powerful happens. She doesn't just relax. She starts to trust. She begins to believe, maybe for the first time, that intimacy doesn't have to come at the cost of safety. And that's when desire starts to grow, not as a transaction, but as a natural byproduct of trust. This is why you should never interpret a boundary as rejection. When a woman says, I'm not ready, or I want to take things slow, she's not necessarily pulling away. She's checking whether your connection can hold the weight of her truth. And men who are grounded, men who know their own worth, don't take that personally, because they're not there to conquer her. They're there to see her, to understand her, and meet her in a space where intimacy can be built, not forced. And let's be honest, if you're looking for a woman who is deep, feminine, emotionally rich, the kind of woman whose presence feels like home, then you're not going to get by ignoring her boundaries. You get there by understanding that her boundaries are part of her design, not a barrier to closeness, but a pathway to it. Boundaries show you the shape of her self-worth. They show you how she protects her energy, how she honors herself. Another wasted day, and whether she's still healing from something you can't yet see. And if you are wise, if you are emotionally intelligent, you'll realize that how you handle those early moments matters more than any line you cross physically. Now, here's the deeper truth. Some women want to be desired, but they're terrified of being used. That terror doesn't come from fantasy. It comes from memory. It comes from relationships where love was conditional, where they were touched but not seen, where the moment they expressed discomfort, everything changed. The tone shifted. The affection dried up. The love revealed itself for what it was. Control. Control. Now, when she says, I need space, or I want to take this slow, she's not just talking to you. She's talking to every man who didn't listen before you. And how you respond will determine whether you repeat that cycle or break it. A woman who desires you will communicate limits, not because she's unsure about you, but because she's finally sure about herself. She wants to know, can you meet me at my level of self-respect? Or will your desire for me disappear the moment I stop making it easy? That's why attraction deepens after boundaries are honored, not before. Because when a woman feels that her no is just as safe as her yes, she begins to open from a place of freedom, not fear. This is where emotional maturity shows up in men. Immature men push past resistance. Mature men lean into understanding. They don't panic when a boundary appears. They plus in, and they let their presence speak louder than their pressure. The irony is, the more you honor her boundaries, the more she begins to trust you with what lies beyond them. Not because you forced your way in, but because you proved you were safe to invite in. So if you're wondering whether a woman wants to sleep with you, look at the way she communicates her boundaries, and then look at how you respond. That interaction will tell you everything about where your connection is headed, because the real sign that a woman wants you isn't just in her flirting. It's in her willingness to test whether you can handle her truth. If you can, she won't just give you access to her body. She'll give you access to her trust. And trust is the gateway to everything sacred between a man and a woman. Any man can pursue a woman's body, but only a man who honors her boundaries will ever be trusted with her soul. Most men are trained to look for flirtation, a smile, a laugh, a compliment, as a sign of a woman's interest. But the truth is, another wasted day, the deeper signal of desire is not in how playful she is. It's in how vulnerable she becomes. When a woman begins to truly crave intimacy with you, not just physical closeness, but emotional access, she doesn't just flirt. She reveals. She takes off the armor she's been taught to wear around most men. She lets you see something beneath the surface. Not to seduce you, but to trust you. That's not casual. That's sacred. This is where real intimacy begins. Because what a lot of men don't understand is that vulnerability is far riskier for a woman than physical connection, especially for a woman who's been hurt, manipulated, or discarded. Giving her body might feel safer than giving her truth, because her body has been commodified before, but her heart is still learning who can be trusted with it. So when she begins to open emotionally, when she shares a story from her past, and a fear she doesn't usually talk about, a secret hope, a pain point, she's not just talking, she's inviting. She's stepping out of the role she plays for the world and showing you who she is beneath it. If she talks about her childhood wounds, or something that shaped her deeply, or how she's learned to protect herself, and she's watching how you respond, that's a signal, not of weakness, not of dependence, but of desire, because what she's really asking in that moment is this: can you handle all of me? Not just the attractive, polished version, but the real version. But that question lives at the heart of every woman's desire. Not just can you have me, but can you hold me? And here's where a lot of men miss the opportunity. They either rush past the moment, try to make it lighter, more comfortable, or turn it into advice. Or they get uncomfortable and shut down. Because real vulnerability in a woman awakens something deep in a man is just another wasted day. The question of whether he's ready to be trusted. And being trusted isn't about having all the answers. It's about being present enough to hold space for what she reveals without trying to fix it, judge it, or run from it. It's about responding not from ego, but from empathy. Another wasted day, when a woman feels safe enough to be emotionally raw in front of you, she's not just saying she likes you. She's showing that she sees you as a potential container. Someone stable enough, secure enough, mature enough to handle the truth. And if you can receive that truth without flinching, without turning it into a joke or a lecture, that's when her desire begins to deepen, because she doesn't just want to be wanted. She wants to be witnessed. Think about that for a moment. Desired and wit desired are not the same. She knows what it's like to be desired for how she looks, how she moves, how she smiles. That's common. What's rare is being witnessed. Emotionally, spiritually, psychologically, and still being chosen. That's what makes her crave more. That's what opens her up, slowly, fully, and completely. When she reveals vulnerability and you don't collapse under it, when you meet it with grounded stillness, not performative sympathy, she starts to associate you with safety. And where a woman feels safe, she opens. Emotionally first, then spiritually, then and only then physically, if the emotional environment supports it. This is why emotionally intelligent men, the ones who don't try to dominate but instead listen, slow down, and create real connection are the ones women remember. Because those men don't just chase surface level attention, they receive the depth when it's offered. They recognize that when a woman shares something sacred, she's not just making conversation, she's testing the waters of emotional intimacy. And no, this doesn't mean every deep conversation leads to sex. That's not the point. The point is that vulnerability is the precursor to true desire. It's how she checks whether you're worth giving herself to, not just physically, but energetically, because she knows what it's like to be touched by someone who doesn't truly see her. And she's not going back there. So when you see a woman opening up, don't interrupt the moment. Don't intellectualize it. Just be with it. Let her words hang in the air. Breathe. Listen. Stay. Another way to that's when she knows she can trust you with more. That's when her guard starts to drop. That's when she starts imagining what it might feel like to be held by someone who doesn't need to overpower her in order to feel strong. Because the real secret is this: vulnerability is not weakness. It's invitation. It's a woman saying without words, here's who I really am. Will you still want me now? And when a man has the strength to say, yes, not with just words, but with his energy, his presence, his respect, then something shifts. Desire takes root in something far deeper than attraction. It becomes trust. Any man can touch a woman's body, but it takes strength to hold her truth. And that's what makes her want to give you all of her.